Welcome to 2024. I hope everyone's year is off to a good start, regardless of whether your 2023 was good or whether it was a year you would rather forget. I hope that the new year is going well for you. My channel is starting off 2024, looking back at the final month of 2023. Logging the backlog, for those who don't know, is just my little series that looks at games I've played the previous month and what I've been up to in those games. I've completed some games this month and added some new ones to the list. As always, I have a wide variety of games that I play during the month, so let's see what I was up to in December 2023. I was able to complete 2 games during the month of December. Both of these were games that I expected to finish up this month, so I was pretty happy that I was right and able to knock these games off the backlog this month. You can expect reviews for both of these games in the future, but I'll talk a bit about them now. The first is Final Fantasy III. After a few months of having Final Fantasy III languishing on my lists, I finally just buckled down and blasted through the last part of the game this month. This was my first time through Final Fantasy III, and I must say I wasn't super impressed with the game overall. It's not bad, it just wasn't quite as good as I was hoping. The job system is very interesting, but it wasn't really enough to make up for a story that just wasn't really there that much. Like, it was just very basic and simple. One thing nice about this game though was that I didn't really have to do any cleanup after finishing the story. I was able to pretty much keep up with all the trophies I needed to as I was playing through. So once I beat the game, I was able to get the platinum, and it wound up giving me my 97th platinum trophy. So I was pretty happy to get this one knocked off and another platinum in my collection. The second game is The Upturned. Now, this was a strange game from start to finish. Part platformer, part horror game, and part comedy. The Upturned is quite the experience. I'm not sure that I fully understood the game's story by the end of it, but I did find the game to be an enjoyable experience full of wackiness and some pretty good jump scares along the way. I'm definitely not going to go back and unlock all of the bonus stages to get the last achievement of the game in this one, but it was an overall enjoyable experience. The story section here is a little lighter than some months. I finished a couple of story games, and only one of the new games I added this month really qualified as a story game. So the first story game on the list is Stardew Valley. Now, I'm still working on my playthrough with the Stardew Valley Expanded mod. I'm currently in the spring of year 2, and I didn't really play this that much. I think I played again just one evening, and I'm just kind of continuing to gain money, expand my farm. I've been trying to work on the last few community center collections I have, while also doing any other quests or random things that kind of come along the way. And I feel like my progression in Stardew has been going really slowly lately. I think this is like the second month that I've only played it like one night each month. So that makes for not very quick progression, but I'm hoping once the year gets started and we get kind of out of the big holidays, that I'll have a little bit more time to tackle this over the next month. The second story game is Final Fantasy IV. Since I finished up Final Fantasy III, I'm moving on in my quest to play through all the main entries of the Final Fantasy series. Final Fantasy IV, or Final Fantasy II as it was originally released in the US, is actually a Final Fantasy game that I owned growing up. I have very fond memories of this game, so I'm looking very forward to playing through it once again, and ultimately seeing whether those memories are accurate to what I would now think of the game. Are they ones that are just kind of fueled by it being one of my first Final Fantasy games that I owned, one of the first SNES RPGs that I played, or is it a game that has real staying power? I'm not super far in the game so far, but I am very much enjoying myself so far. To me, it is already probably my favorite out of all the Final Fantasies I've played up until now, even though I'm only maybe like an hour or two into the game. I just feel like it's a major step in a lot of ways, like character, story development, even the way they do the job system here. It's not one you can like change jobs in, but each character has their own job. It just is a lot more enjoyable already, and I'm only a portion of the way through. The one bad thing is that it is maybe a little bit harder as well, but that's not really bothering me so far, and we'll see how that goes. If at worst, like, it needs a little grinding and level grinding, I can always use the boost features to kind of reduce that a little bit, and that should work out pretty well. Moving on from story games, I'll be focusing on games that I call endless games. And these are games that just don't have story or clear-cut endings. They can be online PvP, arcade, sandbox, creative, simulation, or party games. Now, some of these are games that I enjoy quite a bit and wind up playing regularly each month. Others are ones that I play for a season and then I move on from, and maybe I come back to every once in a while, or maybe I just kind of drop it and don't really look back. There are also games that we'll play as a family off and on, depending on the month that make it on this list, that are, maybe more co-op or competitive, just games that we just play like on a couch or something like that. So those are what you can kind of expect out of the endless category. First endless game is Fortnite. It was a pretty huge month for Fortnite in December. Chapter 5 of the Battle Royale mode released, which has been pretty fun overall in my opinion. I like a lot of what they've added this season. I like the weapon mods and the map overall. There are some shortcomings in it. The weapon pictures do lack kind of a distinct look and can kind of be a bit confusing as to like, oh, was this a SMG or was this a shotgun? I also think that the loot train in the game is kind of weak. Like there just really isn't much to it and it feels like it could be a bit better than what it is. But overall, I really like the new chapter. The skins are pretty good from the battle pass, and I just have been enjoying it so far. December has also been Winterfest, which brought some fun new skins and other goodies for free. Winterfest is probably one of my favorite events in Fortnite, and this year's has continued that trend. It is a little sad that there wasn't any cabin scene this year, but that's okay, and you know, with all the things that Fortnite has been doing this month, I kind of understand that something probably had to give, and the cabin scene is probably the least important aspect of it all. Speaking of what they've been busy doing, Fortnite added a whole bunch of new modes this month at the kind of start of the new chapter. They added Lego Fortnite, Rocket Racing, and Fortnite Festival. It kind of feels like Fortnite is trying to take over the video game world with a Minecraft-style game, a racing game, and a rhythm game, but I really did enjoy these modes. I don't know that they'll overtake Battle Royale for me, or even necessarily some of the base games that they're trying to like copy off of, but I will probably play most of these off and on when I feel like it. The second game is Bloons TD6. I played a little bit at the start of the month and a little bit at the end of the month here. Kind of the middle of December, I just didn't really play it all that much. I think I did a couple of Odysseys and maybe was involved very little bit in a contested territories at the beginning of the month. But other than that, I really didn't do too much. Even though Bloons did have kind of a big update of its own because it added a new hero, a new map, some new quests, and all kinds of stuff to it. I didn't really take much of a look at these things. I don't have enough money for the new hero, so I haven't gotten to play around with him, but I'm sure that I'll save up and be able to get to those in later months. The third endless game is Marble Snap. This continues to be a game I play regularly throughout the month and enjoy, despite not feeling like I'm always doing too good at the game. It's just a game that I like, but don't feel particularly good at. Lately, I've just been continually getting stuck in the 70 ranks and struggle to rise above that range. Every once in a while, I'll get up into the 80s, but that tends to be where I just stall out. Despite my struggle though, I still unlock some new cards over the month, which is always fun and kind of part of what keeps you coming back for these kind of games. I added Sebastian Shaw, Jeff the Baby Landshark, Thanos, Havoc, and Celine, which I feel like is a pretty good haul. There's not a lot of cards that I don't have yet, and so getting 6 new ones over the course of the month is always nice to see. And even though I don't always feel like I do the best at it, I really do continue to enjoy the strategy that's behind Marble Snap, and while I'm probably never going to be more than a middle-of-the-pack player of the game, I still have a lot of fun with it. The fourth endless game is Jackbox Party Pack 5. We played a night of Jackbox Party Pack 5 early on in December. The fifth pack is one that we've only played a couple times. I think this was our second time playing it in December, so I'm not as familiar with some of these games, but they're overall pretty fun. You Don't Know Jack is always fun for a trivia game that really makes you think in weird ways and is maybe not always the most appropriate. Split the Room is fun, but we've only played it with 4 people, and it kind of feels like you need more than 4 to really have that game shine, and we've not really had more than that, so it feels a little bit more awkward than some of the other ones. Madverse City is silly fun, as you can only expect from a robot rap battle. Patently Stupid is a fun inventing game that is pretty good from some laughs as you're trying to create inventions to solve ridiculous problems. There is also one other game mode called Zeepeldome in this one, but we didn't play it this month. We just kind of ran out of time. Fifth endless game I played this month was Overwatch 2. I played some Overwatch 2 a couple times this month. One while the kids were home while my wife was at work because they were on Christmas break, and then another time as a family one evening during the month. And Overwatch 2 is one of those games that I'm just a bit conflicted over. It's a game that is quite a bit of fun, at least most of the time when it's not really frustrating and you're getting railroaded, but it's also a game that I don't really like the path they've gone down from a development standpoint. The forced switch from Overwatch, the poor justification for calling Overwatch 2 a sequel, the change in monetization, and locking new heroes behind a paywall or challenges just aren't great aspects of this new game. Sequels are supposed to kind of go forward and progress, and none of these steps really feel like progression. I feel like Overwatch 2 is always going to kind of be in a weird place for me. It's going to be a game that I like to a point, but a game that I'm just never really going to get that into. Like, I'll play it whenever other people in my family want to play it, but it's not necessarily a game I'm going to go out of the way and play on my own. The sixth endless game is NGU Idle. I started this on PC this month. It's an idle game, and in some ways, it was a great month to start an idle game. I would have it running while I was running errands, wrapping presents, and various things like that. At the same time, idle games aren't exactly that inspiring, even if they can be very addicting to watch those numbers going up. NGU Idle is a rather complex and involved idle game that has the humor of about your average middle schooler. Well, there is that complexity and has tons of features and such to unlock in order to like add bonuses to your stats and keep those numbers rising. The presentation in the game isn't awesome. There is absolutely no sound in the game, no sound effects, no background music, nothing. And the art is basically MS Paint style. So yeah, it's not exactly inspiring on that front. Most of the graphics are just bars progressing. And while the numbers go up and it can be kind of addictive, it isn't super awesome. I feel like that's kind of my feeling with idle games. Like idle games can be addictive and kind of keep you going for a while on those, but they're never going to be favorite games of mine. They're going to be games that maybe suck me in for a little bit, but overall, I don't feel like most of these kind of games are really great games overall. The seventh endless game is Monster Hunter World. I also started this game on the PlayStation this month. I couldn't decide if it fit better as a story game or an endless game, but after playing it a few times this month, endless seemed like a better fit. There is kind of a story to it, but it doesn't really feel like it's very in-depth, and there's a very big online component to it, so endless seemed more accurate. And I'd never played a Monster Hunter game before now, and I'm not sure what I think about it so far. I kind of like it, but there is a lot that feels very awkward about the game. The controls just don't feel quite what I'm used to for kind of an action RPG type game like this. The online component feels a little awkward. There's just a bunch of things that I'm just like, this just doesn't feel quite right. Maybe that will change once I get stronger, get a little bit more used to the game, but for now, it's just okay. I'm not falling in love with the game as of yet, but maybe with a little bit more time, that'll change. And my last endless game is Vampire Survivors. I almost forgot to add this to the list. I don't know how, because Vampire Survivors is another game that had some major updates in December. At the beginning of the month, Adventure Mode was released, which I was really looking forward to. Unfortunately, I found it kind of underwhelming once it did release. It's kind of fun because it challenges you to go through certain stages with a limited set of weapons, and that will really kind of change your strategy up. So I do like that, but it just doesn't really add anything to the game experience much other than that limitation. You don't unlock new things by doing things in adventure mode, which seems really kind of strange to me, but it is still more Vampire Survivors, and that's always a good thing. It just wasn't quite what I expected. Also in December, this time closer to the end, Vampire Survivors dropped a new DLC, which is a crossover with Among Us called Emergency Meeting. Now, I didn't really see this one coming at all. If you're asking me like what kind of games would I think would be crossed over into Vampire Survivors, I'd probably never think of Among Us. And admittedly, I'm not really sure that this is my favorite of the DLC for the game. It's fun, but that kind of difference in theme compared to some of the other ones, just, I don't know. I don't know that it really meshed quite as well for me as some of the other ones. Now, that said, it was a lot of fun to see how they incorporated Among Us into Vampire Survivors. They did some really fun and unique things, I think, with the weapons in particular that add like certain gameplay elements, or just what aspects of Among Us they took and made into weapons, like card swiping. Just things like that were a lot of fun, and I did really enjoy that aspect of it. It maybe isn't my favorite DLC for Vampire Survivors, but it still was a lot of fun to play, and I always say more Vampire Survivors is never a bad thing. Now, I actually have a game that I've been playing to just wrap up trophies on this month. I haven't had a game make it to this category for quite some time, mainly because I've been finishing up the games that I would have put in this category, and then they just wind up going to the completed category instead of the trophy category. And the game that I have been playing for this is Zombie. Now, I finished the story mode on Zombie last month, got through the story for the first time, and now I've been playing through the normal difficulty. I wound up playing on the hardest difficulty my first time through, and now I'm just kind of going back and doing normal difficulty and trying to earn one of my last two trophies. Unfortunately, the game doesn't difficulty stack their trophies, so you have to play through the game 3 times to get all the different difficulty trophies. You have to do one on the survival mode, which is the hardest mode, normal, which is kind of the normal difficulty, difficulty, and then there's like an easy, I can't remember what it's called, like chicken or something maybe. It's kind of a bummer as the game isn't great, and so to have to play through it 3 times just isn't awesome. I mean, I'm taking my time through it. It's not like I'm just playing that all the time, so it's not a huge deal, but I would have rather the difficulty trophies would stack like they do in most games, and so just beating it on that hardest mode would have unlocked 3 trophies right there, and I wouldn't have had to make another run. While it's not my favorite game, it's not terrible to run through the games either. It's just kind of more time consuming. I was hoping to get through the whole playthrough in December, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. I'm close, but I haven't quite made it. It didn't help that I ran into a crash along the way one of the last times I played it, so that kind of knocked me back in my progress a little bit and made it so that I really didn't have the time to get it done before the end of December. Hopefully, early January, I'll be able to kind of knock that out and maybe even start the lowest difficulty run as well, and maybe be done with Zombie by the end of January. I doubt that that'll happen, but you never know. So December wound up being a pretty good month for me in terms of getting games played and finished up. I was able to finish up 2 games, which is always a good feeling. Also, a number of games that I'm playing received some pretty significant updates over the month, which is always fun to see. It's always fun to see games get new content, whether it's DLC, free updates, just new seasons, all those kind of things. So like that was kind of surprising. I didn't really expect December to be such a huge like update month. I mean, like Fortnite I kind of knew about because that was just when the season was ending, and they usually kind of start a new season before December and then Winterfest and all that. But like Vampire Survivors and Balloons, I wasn't expecting quite the big updates there. And I mean, all this with December being a pretty busy month with Christmas and coming off of Thanksgiving and getting everything ready for all of that. Like, I'm pretty happy with what I was able to get done despite the busyness of the season. So how about you? What have you been playing in December? Have you picked up any new releases over the month? Been playing old favorites? Removing older games from your own backlogs? Let me know in the comments, as it's always fun to see what others are playing and to see if those games are ones I'd like to add to my own backlog. But I hope everyone had a great 2023 and a great December, and that the start of 2024 is going well, and that you're playing games that you enjoy. That's all for this month though, so we'll see you in the next video.